Next week's presentation, Breaking Children Out of the Cycle of Poverty, Dr. Richard Klukas. I'm not sure I'm saying his name correctly, I apologize. Children raised in deep poverty rarely see life's opportunities. By broadening their beliefs in what they can do and teaching them how to reach their goals, children can learn how to leave poverty behind. Tomorrow's Aeronautical Museum, the TAM, a nonprofit located in the impoverished, crime-infested city of Compton, California, has been doing just that. Using airplanes, they take children as young as 7 for a flight and give them the controls of the airplane. The shock of having flown an airplane, something so far from their concept of what is possible, they begin to understand what they can do or be or anything. The methods of TAM can be used to help young Mexicans escape poverty. Dr. Klukas spent 40 years in marketing, communications, advertising, and public relations. He holds a master's degree in communications and a master's and PhD in education. I think that's an important talk that many of us will want to attend. Okay. So, now we come to this week's presentation. I'd like to introduce Don Aiken, who's going to introduce our presenter on this presentation. As you know, Don has been doing these talks for years and has given his life to this arena of our precious, precious planet. So you were using a handheld, huh?
Here. Well, this is something unusual and nice. We can say we've got the whole world in our hands, the whole wide world in our hands. We all do. Nice, a very nice beginning. Yes, many of you know and have come to the talks for 13 straight years. I gave an update on climate change, global warming, and renewable energy. And 2 years ago, David Rodwell and I made connection. And David has done so much and been so good in all of this, we decided to make a tag team. And we were prepared in 2019 to give it together. And he would give the climate change and I would give the renewable energy. Of course, the COVID took care of that. And last year it took care of that again. And this year, to experiment, David had the courage to say that he would go it alone and do this for all of us. And I'm happy to say that I am passing the gavel to David with today's presentation. And it's very nice. David, you have the bio in there, but I'm going to go through some of this because it's quite remarkable. David, sorry. David first worked in the environmental arena with the Peace Corps with tropical infectious disease detection in Brazil. And then he went back to the US, he re-entered the school, he earned a bachelor's in environmental geography and environmental biology. So he was already digging deeply into what you really need to know if you're going to be an effective environmental activist. Mr. Rodwell went on to graduate engineering school to study alternative energy sources. So he's covered pretty much the whole spectrum of what we need to know now to try to deal with climate change. 2017, David joined former Vice President Al Gore for a face-to-face training by the Vice President, earning him the title of Climate Reality Leader and certifying him to present the Climate Reality presentation. That was developed by Vice President Gore and came out of the Inconvenient Truth film that he had done, which ultimately it won him a Nobel Prize. Mm-hmm. And Gore really wanted to make sure that this began to get out, and he developed this group. And David has given this presentation across the United States, Canada, and even in Ajijic 2 years ago. That's how we made the connection. He is one of 20,000 certified to do so, but we're very honored, and it's very lucky and very special to have David with us here.
Thank you, Don. Thank you. You promised you would help me with one thing. Do you mind sticking around just for a second? So Don has been carrying the water for a long, long time. This place is a miracle. This location, Ajijic, in this area, has more solar installations per capita than maybe any place else in the world, certainly in Mexico. So he has done some wonderful things. So just recently, a few little sneaky people got together and decided to do something for Don. And so if you will stand here for just a moment, I have my own hinge person helping me, my lovely wife. Thank you. It's upside down as usual. So Don, this is a plaque with your lovely face on it. It also, this is going to be placed in the garden someplace. They're going to redo the insides here, and this is going to get a home, TBD, to be determined exactly where, but we've had so much wonderful cooperation with LCS. And Steve, where is Steve? Lord have mercy. I'm going to sing at his wedding. There you are. Okay, bless your heart. He and Luis have been fabulous. Is it too loud? I'll take it down a bit. I'd rather control it with this. So anyway, so the plaque says, Donald Aiken, PhD. Is that true? Okay. A man who dedicated his life to preserving the planet through education and putting science into practice. He was a professor and research physicist at Stanford, wherever that is. And later, I went to the University of Kansas. And later on the faculty of San Jose State University, where he created and ran one of the first academic departments of environmental studies in the U.S., a founder of Friends of the Earth. He counseled heads of state on sane energy policy through the years. In 2007, he and his wife created the first all-solar home in Lake Chapala, in the Lake Chapala area. And thanks to them, there are now thousands. We owe much gratitude to this visionary activist who settled among us in the Ajijic and surrounding area and shared his love of life, music, and the fragile planet. Please give Don a hand. So Don, please take this. This is yours until they decide where they're going to put it. And once they do that, you're going to have to give it back to them, okay? Thank you, everybody. Okay, so now let me get started. I did this presentation to a very small group here in Ajijic a couple of years ago, and there are people in the audience that I know, but I can't tell with the masks on. Who do I know here? Oh, Lordy. Okay, there they are right there. So this is Alex, and you know, I have notes up here to remember people's names, and I can never do it. That's Linda. Okay, anybody else that I know? Margaret, of course, and then there's Leslie right there. Steve is here. Luis is frequently around. So I know some of you. I'm so thrilled that you made it. Thank you. That means so much. So a couple quick questions before we launch this ship. Who's full-time here? Okay. And who's visiting? All right. How many from the U.S.? Lord. How many from Canada? Okay. And how many are Democrats? I'm just kidding. So here's a tough question, and this is serious. This helps me tremendously. How many of you think that we have a climate problem that needs immediate attention? Okay, most of you. How many are just not sure, they can't figure out, that they just don't fully understand everything? Anybody brave enough to admit that? Anybody think we're full of hooey and this is a hoax? I got one hand. Where is it? No, I'm kidding. Ah, there it is. Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and get started here. I believe these are yours. That's covering up my names here, because when I start calling names, I can't remember them. I'm 72 years old, my wife tells me, and so this always helps me a little bit. So we're going to talk about a lot of stuff. I like this to be somewhat interactive. I cannot take questions until the end. Full disclosure, I forgot my belt. I couldn't find it this morning. And no one here had a waistline adequate for me to borrow theirs. So what we'll do is interactive. I'm going to ask you questions and ask for help and all sorts of little things, but that'll unfold as we go. So let me pull my little clicker out. Please be there. And please be turned on. It is. Okay. So this is called the Big Blue Marble. Anybody know who took this picture? They were kind of, Don says astronaut. Don, you can't play. Don knows all the answers. He can't play. So this was taken by Apollo 17 in 1972. Anybody here then? Okay, a couple of brave souls. I was just barely 20-something years old, and what they were doing is they were going to the moon. Apollo kept going to the moon, around it, and finally landed on it. And just somewhere along the way, NASA said, hey guys, can you see the Earth? Well, no, because we're aimed at the moon. So they flipped the spacecraft around. They went, oh my gosh. It was the first time ever that a fully lit picture of the entire Earth, this was our home, and nobody had really considered it as such. So, now let me just ask you folks, do I block the view when I stand here? I can go over there. I'll move around a lot anyway. So this is called the Big Blue Marble. All of what we are doing here today, this entire presentation is it too loud? I'm going to bring it down a little bit. How's that? Too low. All right, I'm back where I was. Okay. So they're happy and you're unhappy. Well, you're standing 2 feet from the speaker. See, they've turned me down. Now you got to turn me back up a little bit. Okay, I'll just speak quietly. How's that? Okay, so this is all based on a study that was created by the United States government. Has anybody heard of it? An old established firm? And these are the 13 agencies of government that put this whole bunch of information together. NASA's on there, the Department of Defense. There's a whole bunch of organizations that went into putting this together. And so these are not, most of this came from Fox News. So no, this is all straight from the government. So we're going to ask 3 questions today. We're going to ask, do we have a problem that we have to fix? Do we have to change? Can we change, and will we? So I'm going to start off with must we change, and let's see if we can figure that out. So, what is this? That's the atmosphere. Now here's a great question. That atmosphere is that thick. That's a view from the side. One of the spacecraft took that. From the side, it's about that thick. Now, if we got into, how many of you have cars? Okay, you can play. If you turned your car upside down and drove it straight up at highway speeds, how long would it take to get out of the atmosphere? Anybody have a guess? An hour?
1 hour.
1 hour? We got one guess for 1 hour. Anybody have another one?
2 hours.
2 hours. The answer is a few minutes. This is approximately 7.5 miles thick. At 12,500 feet, a pilot flying a private airplane must have oxygen. You're flying in a jet at 49,000 feet or 39,000 feet. This is 49,000 feet roughly right here. So this is not very thick. It's fragile, and there's not much of it. So let's get rolling here. I have about 18 seconds per slide, so we'll start moving pretty fast here. So a little bit of a remedial training here. Solar radiation comes in the form of light, hits the Earth, and the Earth absorbs a lot of that and warms the Earth. Well, some of that energy actually bounces back out in the form of infrared heat, goes away, and then some of it is bounced back off of this atmospheric area here into the Earth. But as this gets thicker and thicker, more and more of it is bouncing back. So let's talk a little bit about this word right here. How many of you can see it? It says CO2. So what is CO2? Carbon dioxide, somebody said. Is it good? Is it bad? It's like spinach, too much of it will kill you. CO2, let me get you to all do something. Deep breath. Hold it, please. You have just reduced the carbon footprint here by 1 micromillionth of a point. Thank you for that. So what's happening here is more of this is being trapped inside, and we have been treating our atmosphere like an open sewer, dumping more and more pollution. So we're putting in 152 million tons of it every day. Now, is that much? It sounds like a lot. Maybe it is a lot. Maybe it's like exploding 400 nuclear bombs a day. 400,000. Oh, it's 400,000. Oh my gosh, that's a lot. I figured out, I did the math. It's a bomb every 500 square miles all over the earth. If we exploded 400,000 Hiroshima-style bombs every day, that would be equivalent to the amount of heat and extra energy that we're putting into the atmosphere that we should not. Now, this right here, we're looking back 800,000 years ago up to the future. And we're looking at the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. It was running someplace around 300 at the max and down towards 100 at the minimum. When we talk about parts per million, if I take a swimming pool, fill it full of 1 million ping pong balls, throw one black one in the middle, that is 1 part per million. So that's where it has been. And people say, well, this climate thing, that's just a hoax because it's cyclical, it changes. And yes, it does. Each one of these things right here, here, what happened? Don, you can't play. Don wrote the book, darn it. Ice ages. These were all ice ages that happened right here. Now we get back to the future, and we're up here right now. Maybe in another 100,000 years we got one of those coming up. I don't know. But here's what's been happening. This runs along with the temperature. So it is cyclical, it goes up and down, and as the CO2 goes up, so does the temperature. Now, Don, zip it. How can they look back 800,000 years?
Sediment.
Sediment, close. That's so close.
Ice core.
Who said that? Ice cores. They drill down into the North Pole, the South Pole, and they can go through layer after layer of ice that formed every year, and they can go back 800,000 years and tell us what was going on, which is miraculous, I think. Well, things have kind of gone up a little bit since then, so we have to raise our scale a little bit. Here's where we are right now. When I started this, we were at about 404 parts per million of carbon dioxide, which was too much. Now, this is the measurement from 2019. It's 2021. I do have good news. Yesterday, I went and looked at the Mauna Loa National Observatory, which is one of the primary places we measure this stuff, and we're still sitting about 414. When I started in 2017 doing these presentations, it was about 404. But if we don't do something, and we keep going at the level that we've been going up, I just have to tell you, the lights are out right here. I mean, they're gone. We're not there anymore. In fact, we're going to lose a lot of species as it is anyway. Oh, this is great. I just pulled this off yesterday. This is great. Let's see if I can point it out. 2010 to 2020, this little graph. So we had a little peak right here that was up where it's supposed to be around 414, and something happened. Who said it? I heard it. Who said COVID? Well, you're going to have to fight over it. Oh, it was you? It's exactly what happened. We didn't go out. We didn't drive. We didn't do all this stuff worldwide. So the cure for the climate crisis is a worldwide pandemic. So that's your other alternative if you don't like what we're going to talk about in a minute. Now, these are the primary sources of greenhouse gases. Now, there are a lot of greenhouse gases. The one we focus on is CO2, but there's a bunch more. There's a big one called methane. Does anybody know what methane is? Say it again? Cow fart. That is true, though, and that is a serious problem. Methane is what you cook on with the stove. It is what we and the cows. What did you said fart? Didn't you? No, not me. Anyway, so methane's another one. It's worse, but we don't have as much of it. Where's the methane going into the atmosphere coming from? I heard the word. Did somebody say fracking? Somebody say fracking, please. Thank you, because they're just dumping it out. I mean, literally, it's just spewing out all over. There's no control at all. So the biggest sources of greenhouse gases you can see here, all of these things together are primary burning fossil fuels, and that's where most of it's coming from. Animal agriculture is right behind energy generation and automobiles. So the largest source of our problem is fossil fuel. And you know what all those things are, from coal all the way to whatever. So down here at 1850, what happened?
Industrial Revolution.
We discovered oil in anybody know where? Pennsylvania. That's exactly correct. I was glad you said it because I couldn't remember the state. Pennsylvania, they discovered oil. And Titusville, is that what you said? I'm close. I'm almost there. And so that began this industrial revolution. What happened right here? 1950. Well, the year before I was born, so that was good. But this is where we started all getting cars, starting doing all these other things, and the growth up in carbon has been huge. So here's the bad news. Of the last 20 years, 19 of them have been the hottest in history. Here's the worst news. You know you're in trouble when the last 7 years have been the hottest years ever. And this is where it's starting to show. So right here, 2020 was the hottest year for a lot of places, Mexico included. Second hottest season for Latin America. And that's just yesterday. Now, Mexico's average temperature. I need 2 volunteers. I'd like you to be close together. 2 volunteers. You don't have to come up. You don't have to move. Come on. We can't go until somebody says they'll do it. I'll tell you what. Alex, you and Linda, you're nominated. I want you to remember, and you people around them, remember, Mexico's average annual temperature could rise 5 degrees this century if we don't do something. You got that number? Do you need to write it down? You got it. You two, all you folks around, help them remember that. We're going to need it in a little bit. Okay, so this is crucial. One of the big problems that we have is that the oceans are getting hotter. Now, you know that when you get in the pool, this part is really nice and warm. It's cooler here and coldest at the bottom. Well, the problem that we have is that the ocean temperatures have been rising, but they've also been rising deeper. In the deep, deep oceans, you're talking about 2 miles down here, 2,000 meters. 2,000 meters, is that 1 mile? It's a long way. So that's a problem. What is this? Which one? Pacific Ocean. And so right here is beautiful Hawaii, United States is over here, Australia, but this giant mass here, most all of the energy that we're getting from the sun, of all this trapped heat, 93% of it's going into the ocean. Very important that we understand that. So as we move along, what's happening is these storms are happening like I hate to say this, like never before. I hate those words. You know who uses that all the time. Yeah, this is like we've never seen before. Anyway, okay, somebody got it. So hurricanes are forming faster. They're bigger. They're more intense. Look at a few things here. Hurricane Delta. It went from a category of a tropical storm to a category 4 hurricane. 5 is the top in 36 hours. It was a new record. Never had happened before. 2020. Katia, oh, it landed at Veracruz, did mammoth amounts of damage, flooding all over. Some of you may have been here for this. Was anybody here specifically for Hurricane Patricia? Okay, I'm going to take you. Were you here? Was it horrible? Well, because when I look at this, here's the eye, and if I'm not mistaken, here's where we are. This must have been unbelievable. When it turned out, it was the strongest hurricane in the history of the world to date. And you didn't even notice it. What, were you inside? You should have gone out and looked. It must have been pretty amazing. So how does climate change affect the oceans and the hurricanes and all that? Well, the first thing is that the warmer oceans hold more water. Hurricanes eat warm water. The one that hit Texas, went up, hit Louisiana, hit it, bounced back, got a little more strength, went back up, getting weak, got to get some more, 5 times. Back, up and back. Getting more strength from that hot water. So the oceans lead to more intense hurricanes if they're warmer. They intensify much faster than they ever have before. The hurricane season starts earlier, lasts longer, has more intense hurricanes. Warmer air holds more moisture. First of all, everybody okay with that? You understand that concept? So if you're in the summer, the humidity can be where? It can be high because the cold air can't hold the humidity, so the humidity is lower. So the warmer air holds more moisture, more rain, heavier downpours, storm surge. Now the storm surge in a hurricane is when the wind blows the ocean water up onto the land. So if you have a high tide and you have more water in the ocean, which we'll talk about here in just a moment, the ocean levels are going up. They already are up in many places. So the storm surges are worse. And then finally, we got a wavy jet stream. The jet stream used to go from west to east, just like clockwork, everything tracked from west to east. Now the jet stream is doing this because of climate change. And that makes things stay in place much longer. The hurricanes stay where they are because the jet stream is wavier. All right, back to, this is about the 5th grade, I guess. What happens in this hydrologic cycle, we have evaporation. The moisture goes up into the air. It falls in the form of precipitation, rain, sleet, snow, hail, and then finally ends up going back into lakes, streams, and rivers and out to the ocean, hopefully. But as these temperatures increase, the oceans more water comes out of the ocean, more water in the atmosphere, and this is creating a huge problem. Now, this is one of the things. So down here is Hawaii. Up here is California, and they have these atmospheric rivers now that have formed. This is just one they happen to get a picture of. And right over here, about here I guess, is us, somewhere. And these atmospheric rivers are bringing incredible things. Anybody here for this? Yeah. Did you have hail here? Yeah. No, really? That little mountain stopped all that? Yeah. That's 4 feet of hail in Guadalajara. When I saw it, I said, this is not possible. It can't be. Just amazing. So things are happening. When I saw this for the first time, this is called a rain bomb. A rain bomb. So I thought this was from a science fiction movie. It wasn't. These things are happening more and more. But look at this, Arizona. Watch this rain fall down and bounce off the ground. There's so much of it. And it's just very tight. It's just, I don't know why it picks a city to go do it over. So this is a little bit more, there we go, thank you. So this is a little bit unusual. We normally don't see the storm water coming out of houses. It's normally going in. So I don't know what happened there, but somehow the flood was coming through the buildings. Oh, Lord. You can't make this stuff up. In Williamtown, Kentucky, At some point,
People of Williamstown, this is the Lord.
any biblical scholars here, how long was the ark? Somebody said 300 cubits, on the money. Exactly. Who said that? Don did it again. Lord have mercy. So the good people of Williamstown, Kentucky built an ark. They thought it was a good idea. 300 cubits is about 500 feet, about half the length of an aircraft carrier, and they built this thing. I love this. They said it was a wonder of modern engineering. Duh. Anyway, they had a problem. They had some huge rains, and it couldn't withstand the problem. Anyway, they had to sue their insurance company to get restitution because the ark, anyway. You can't make this stuff up. So this same heat that's taking the moisture out of the ocean is taking the moisture out of the land as well. And it's going up into the air. And what's happening is we're having droughts. Now, are we having a drought here? We really are. We really are. You'll see in a minute. Oh, look at Mexico City. It's sinking. Mexico City is sinking about 9 inches per year. I mean, this building is doing the loop-de-loop here, and it's because of over pumping of water out of the aquifers. It's just remarkable what's happening, and the drying conditions, and they're sinking at about a rate of 9 inches a year, which is pretty dangerous. So here's your drought. This is pretty bad, and it's getting worse. California now is in deep doo-doo. Any Californians? I know we got a bunch over here. Why do you all sit together? What's the deal? A little snooty. Half of the reservoirs in Mexico are 50% empty or less. Or if you prefer, 50% full, if you're an optimist. There is a huge problem. Now, I cannot say this word. Desertification. That means that land is turning into a desert at an alarming rate. They're losing 2,000 kilometers every year, and that's having 900,000, almost 1 million people having to leave where they are and go somewhere else because they can't do what they used to do there. This is what they said about Mexico City. They said it's the biggest problem that we have. We have to solve this before we can solve any of the rest of the city's problems. How far is the drive to Mexico City? 6 hours, 8, give or take? Okay. So here's another problem. As we have more temperatures, we have more fires. I was here last year, Mount Garcia was on fire. And I said, well, are they going to put it out? Well, how do you put out a fire on a mountain? I don't know. I guess they just let it burn. So the worldwide extreme catastrophes have been going up. All these bad things, fires, floods, brimstone, cats and dogs sleeping together. It's unbelievable. This is a glacier back in 1935. Here's what it looks like now. All that water from the glacier went into the ocean. Let me back up. Okay, so I skipped my graph. Come on, buddy. Here we go. So what's been happening here, this is Greenland, and they've been losing mammoth amounts of ice. The ice is measured in gigatons. How much is a giga? Is it bigger than a mega? It's 1,000 times bigger than a mega, so it's got to be pretty big. So they've lost a bunch of ice. This is, turn that down just a hair for me. This is Florida, Miami, Florida, and that happens to be the backside of Al Gore wearing some boots up to here, and they're walking around the streets of Miami. Now this is happening all over the world where the higher sea levels are coming up through the water systems, the sewer systems, the storm systems, and on sunny days, they have flooding in the streets. Not from rain, just because the tides are higher, there's more water, and guys are, I've got a picture of a guy catching a fish on the mall in Washington, D.C. This is very interesting because these cities are the top 10 cities at risk of losing dollars or pesos over these problems that we have with the flooding. Miami is in first place. New York is in third place. You can see all the rest of these. If we change it to how many people actually are going to be affected by this, populations at risk, Miami right, there it is, right there. So Miami is still at risk of being in the top 10 in the world of people that are going to have to move. And Miami's trying to build its streets up higher, but you can't raise the buildings. So it's baked in. We'll lose Miami. Now this is the case all over, and Mexico is not being left out of the, oh, I love this. There's an octopus swimming in a parking garage during one of those high flood times. Jalisco, coastal towns are being washed away frequently. We're losing all of this beautiful, beautiful mangrove swamps where there are two engines of growth in the ocean, two big ones. What are they? Mangrove, and what's the other one? Reefs, coral reefs, exactly. Now look at this. I don't know precisely, I hear my southern accent coming out, I apologize for that. I don't know what the actual level is of Cancun, but it ain't much. And so they get another foot of water, which is baked in. It's gone. And you can't do anything about it. There's nothing that can be done. There are whole nations who have had to move because of this. Kiribati in the South Pacific. This is the Mesoamerican barrier reef system. It's hugely important for sea life generation. It's a biological engine, and it's in big, big trouble. Here's the problem. The coral is bleaching. Now, I started scuba diving. Anybody know who Mike Nelson is? Yeah, no kidding. Scuba diver? Outstanding. I watched Sea Hunt in the 60s on TV and taught myself to scuba dive. I had to go get certified finally because they wouldn't fill the tanks anymore, but so I've been scuba diving since I was 14 years old. When did we take the ocean cruise?
2007 probably.
2007? 2007. So I love coral reefs. They're incredible. We went out to Turks and Caicos and they were bleached. They were dead. And that's when I really started paying attention to this climate crisis. Coral lives in a very tight temperature range, and it got too hot and they can't survive and they just die. The Great Barrier Reef is having the same problem in Australia. Switching gears, people do not realize just how sensitive plants are. Guess which plant loves the heat? Weeds, pollen, ragweed. They're so sensitive, it's terrible. So food is affected by a boatload of things here. And we're going to talk a little bit about some more of these. But food is being affected. Much of the problem that we have, oh, I love this. So this is in Veracruz, and Mexico grows a boatload of coffee. They've been good enough just to keep it for themselves because it's so good. We don't see it in the U.S. The Brazilians and the Colombians are sending theirs. But this guy said that the best bet is that about half of our currently suitable area for coffee, Mexico City, transportation is the #1 source of all those greenhouse problems for them, and the particulate pollution. If they could just keep moving in the direction they're going, if they don't sink all the way. 9 inches per year. All right, now this is huge. Let's see what we got. Anybody driving a Prius? Thank you. Anybody driving a hybrid car of any type? 2 or 3. The rest of us are driving gas-powered cars, just regular cars and so forth?
No car.
No car at all. You're walking?
Yep.
They're young, really. Thank you, though. That's fabulous. Now, this is important. The cost of a gasoline-powered car is going up. This goes up. Things go up. Cost goes up. This is the electric car. It's going down. Batteries are getting cheaper, more efficient. The motors are getting better. But here's the important thing. When we get right here, when the electric car becomes cheaper or the same as a gasoline-powered car, what are you going to do? People say, well, I don't believe in this climate change crap. Okay. What if I just let you drive around for cheaper? What if I lower your electric bill at home? Well, forget about the climate. Let's just lower what comes out of your back pocket and let you keep that money. Okay, most people will say, no, I want to spend more money. I'm in favor of that. When this happens, this will be huge. It's going to happen in 2023, and with the next news coming up, I believe that we might push this back a little bit further, a little bit sooner. GM has just announced a giant electric car plant. Somebody pronounce this for me. Coahuila. Coahuila. That's important. Remember that. GM just building this huge electric vehicle plant there. That's fabulous. Now, be still, my beating heart. Ford Motor Company, not my favorite car. Ford Motor Company just announced about 3 or 4 months ago. Anybody drive a pickup? Kind of pickup people? Yeah. What kind?
Nissan Frontier.
A Frontier?
Yeah.
Who makes that?
Nissan.
Nissan. Well, the #1 selling vehicle of all times in America, the other America, NOB, the #1 selling vehicle north of the border is made by Ford Motor Company. It's called the F-150 pickup truck. It's been the most popular vehicle of any kind for the past 40 years. They have been the envy of every automobile company. They just announced a few months ago an electric pickup truck. If you ever see the ad, the truck's pulling a train. It's pulling like 4 cars and a locomotive. It's unbelievable. They introduced it. All right, I want you, everybody put your hands up. And just keep them up for a second. Now, how many of you think they got more than 10 orders? Keep your hands up. How many of you think they got more than 100 orders? Keep your hands up. If 1,000, 2,000, we lost 1, 3,000, 5,000. They got 150,000 orders for them in the first weeks. So what did they do? They said, well, there's a problem. We need to build a new plant. And so Tennessee or Kentucky someplace, they're building an $11 billion plant. An $11 billion plant. It's going to employ 11,000 workers to build the electric 150 pickup truck so you can pull a train if you need to. You know what else it does? If the electricity goes out in your house, which it does in ours fairly frequently, does that ever happen here? You can plug your house into the truck. It will run your house for 3 days. It's remarkable. The electric pickup truck. And they also just announced, this is yesterday, day before, this is amazing. It's huge. Makes a huge, huge difference. They're going to invest another $280 million to modernize a couple of other GM plants to help make the batteries faster. So, Mexico's going to ban diesel cars and vans in 2025. God knows, I don't think anybody will be driving it. You're driving a diesel pickup truck. What are you talking about?
Oh, it's gas.
Oh, it's gas.
But I got a
Okay.
hybrid car.
Okay, I feel better. Thank you. So all of the battery stuff is really picking up. It's starting a dramatic change, and it's going to make a big difference. Lithium-ion battery cost has gone down dramatically, and they're going to the salt battery. If anybody knows that technology, I've heard of it, but I can't understand it. But people worry about lithium. As you know, are we getting close? Is that what you're telling me? Okay. So we're going to go fast here. So this lithium battery stuff, the cost of the batteries is going down. The amount of battery storage that we have is going up. Everything is going in the right direction. Back in 2014, 1% of the world could get solar energy cheaper than coal and whatnot. And then it got up by 2019, only 5 years later, 2/3 of the world could buy solar energy cheaper than the other. And now, within 3 years, the electricity from wind and alternative energy sources is cheaper than anything else in the world. Why would you do anything else? I don't care about the climate change. I don't care about the animals. I care about the money. Thank you. So, we know that we can power the world for 1 hour's worth of energy. We've got all this capacity. It's just climbing. LED lights. We're basically, everybody's using them. They use hardly any energy. These are all the car companies that have announced they're moving to electric. Maybe your favorites there. I don't see Rolls-Royce. These guys are here though, huh? That's not too shabby. These guys make a nice car, and a bunch of them I've never even heard of, because a bunch of these are Chinese, but everybody's jumping in. I drive Volvos, and they are committed to go all electric. So, can we change? Here's where it gets interesting. Of course we can. So it was interesting because I had to ask, will we change? Well, when I started this, a guy got me off the Oval Office. He said, I'm pulling us out of this. This is ridiculous. You can't tell us what to do. We're America. We do what we want to. Every nation in the world agreed, including North Korea, for goodness sake. Well, the good news was when he said, he who cannot be mentioned, when he said that, it couldn't happen, just it happened to be happenstance, until after the 2020 election. It turned out the day after was by the contract, the treaty that we signed. That's the earliest you could pull out. And so the new guy said, let's go ahead and stay. So we're still here, it's still going, it's still working, people are moving, things are happening. We're seeing the signs being carried, children are leading the way. It's just so remarkable. So it's a very simple process. Use your voice, use your vote. These are the things that are going to make the difference. Use your choices, buy the things that make sense. Your world depends on it. Now this is important. After the final no, which I think happened a couple of days ago, comes a yes. And that's what the future of the world depends upon. So thank you very much for letting me share the big blue marble with you.